Waadookawaad. I'm here today to talk to you about the Waadookawaad Amikwag, Those Who Help Beaver website. And we are a grassroots group who, since the end of 2021, have been monitoring the damage that's been caused by the construction and installation of the Line 393 pipeline that Enbridge put in northern Minnesota. Today's walkthrough of our website will show you some of the new things that we have available, and also will focus on those who are interested in fighting pipeline projects in their area. If you're brand new to pipeline projects and that kind of work, probably the best thing for you to check out is our newsletter. And every quarter we put out a newsletter. This is our latest newsletter. If you click on the newsletter, it'll open it up, and then you can see we have a nice introduction. We have a beautiful consideration of cultural information page. This one focusing on the Big Dipper and the messages that that brings. But the news is what we really want to focus on here. Wisconsin DNR just approved late last year permits for the Line 5 relocation of their pipeline around the Bad River Reservation. And this was done 3 days after a major spill. Enbridge, of course, reported this spill as a very small 2-gallon spill, but by the date of approval for the pipeline, we find that they already knew that this was a much larger spill. So you can click on any of these links, and you'll see right here on November 14th, the day of approval, Enbridge revised the estimate up to 126 gallons. And you can see the devastation that this spill showed on December 16th when independent drone operator BKCAC did some flyover of the site. But you can also see that the DNR is really working to pretend that this isn't a big deal. Their case file that was filed just 4 days later, noting that they did walkthroughs and they noted no sheen or runoff or impacts to the water bodies, but you'll see that every picture they've taken is nice and snow covered with a fresh layer of white, clean snow. So we're really not seeing from the agencies a true picture of what's happening. So that's kind of a high level place where you can go and see our information. Now, if you're someone who has been involved with pipeline project work or looking at extractive industries for some time, you might find that you want to go and look at the damages in specific that we've been able to show. And the overview of construction damages, you can see we have all the different damage types if you want to focus on specific areas, from breaches to frac-outs to wetland protections, dewatering. All of these are places that you can examine in detail. And this overview of construction damages highlights one particular place that we really feel is critical. We focused on water that is upwelling from the land now, after this pipeline has been installed. We have found water at upwards of almost 100 degrees coming out of the land. Now, the good news about us focusing on this work meant that the new permit in Wisconsin for the Line 5 relocation showed some evidence of heat disturbances to the land. But what Enbridge failed to comprehend needed to be reported was literally the temperature of their pipeline. There's a reason in Alaska that all the pipelines are installed above ground, because they run so hot that they would melt the permafrost. And so we're seeing what we have now here in northern Minnesota is we've installed in-floor heating with the pipelines that are going through the land. And we're seeing very hot water discharge, which is a violation. So there's plenty of information in all of these different types of damages. And another place that you might want to check out are our fact sheets. There's two fact sheets. One is a damage site summary, which shows what kind of damages we've seen. And one of the things to note is in Minnesota, the statutes require that pipeline routes avoid water crossings, wetlands, and steep hills and slopes. And that is where most of the damages that we're finding are actually happening. So there's a reason for these statutes to be in place, and there's a reason that these statutes should not have been ignored. And this particular one pager gives you several examples of the types of damages that we're seeing and some of the evidence that we've gathered on the ground. If you're interested in hydrologic damages, we have a page that shows the 10 different types of hydrologic damages that we're seeing. And in particular, I'd like to draw your attention to sheet piling. This sheet piling that pipeline company pounds into the ground was found to be the source cause in all of the confined aquifer breaches that have been reported to the public to date. One of the things that we'll note, however, is that we are not seeing all of the damages reported. Another place that you might go for information about what's happening with regard to the work that Waadookawaad has done is our timeline of communications. This group formed in December, just a couple months after the pipeline started pumping oil, and we have made commentary to the Wisconsin DNR specific to this Line 5 reroute that is being proposed in Wisconsin right now. And you can see that we've had support from folks like Betty McCollum, who have said that we need an independent investigation of what went wrong during the Line 3 project permitting because we've obviously created a lot of damages. You'll see also in our timeline that we had several meetings with the post-construction team inside of the Minnesota state agencies, but they lost their willingness and desire to have discussions with us. Unfortunate to the state because we actually have much better data than they were able to have from their own resources. They do not have the thermal flyover data that we have used to detect where a lot of the Enbridge problems have happened. We also have a significant event timeline that's associated with other activities around pipeline work. And again, you'll see this announcing of the permitting decisions. You'll see the contested case hearings that have resulted in Wisconsin, and you'll see the pushback on the permitting in that location. So lots of great references here. And if you're a real diehard, you've been doing this work for a long time, the site surveys is a great place for you to look. And this top portion of our website speaks specifically to the one charge that Enbridge had, a misdemeanor charge for failing to report the aquifer breach that happened January 21st, 2021 in Clearbrook, Minnesota, which is where the main tank farm is for Enbridge. And basically what was happening is they violated their construction permits, which only allowed a depth of 8 to 10 feet for digging, and they dug to 18 feet and they pounded these steel pilings into the ground and they burst an artesian aquifer. And we talk in here about how we provided additional data to the Attorney General of Minnesota in the form of these site surveys, which show multiple sites of damage that have happened, but that have not yet been reported to the public. Some of these have been. The Mississippi River First Crossing does have some information that was provided to the public regarding the frac-outs, although it was not complete. The LaSalle Valley is one of the places where we saw an aquifer breach. But there are places like Walker Brook South, which is a location that has still not yet been reported to the public in Minnesota, even though it is a damaged site that has tremendous amount of destruction. You can see here this 4 foot by 6 foot hole that opened up above the pipeline because the pipeline was installed into an aquifer, a superficial aquifer, and became a French drain drawing water down the hillside into Walker Brook at the bottom of the valley. The fix for this project involved removal of most of the vegetation in the bog and replacing it with sand and gravel aggregate. And this ended up causing actually more damage than the original damage to the valley from the pipeline installation. And you can see in here details about some of the invasive species that have resulted. You can see the temperature data. You can see a lot of information on these site surveys, which is really specific to each of these locations. And a great place to get information about what violations have occurred, what the state has done in some cases, what Enbridge has done in other cases, and then what some of our tests show. These are from two different upwellings in the Mississippi headwaters. One is orange and one is very dark black. We do believe that these are violations of the permit conditions, which required no permanent damages. We hope that you will find that these site surveys contain a tremendous amount of information that will direct to the kinds of problems that Enbridge creates, and yet which sometimes they just don't get charged with. So in addition to the fact sheets, the communication timeline, there's a lot of information on some of the supporters and collaborators. We've got press credentials of some of the stories that we brought to light, including the fact that we forced the agencies to admit a fourth aquifer breach that they were not going to report. And again, our work continues to document what is happening in the land and showing that information to the public so that they are not kept in the dark while agencies fail to report the damages that are happening. Because agencies fail to report damages, we find these projects continue to be approved and permitted because there's an ignorance about the damages that Enbridge is going to bring. And in fact, we would argue that Enbridge themselves are unaware of all the damages that they might bring. We have seen that the lack of a full environmental impact statement done on line 3 has resulted in a ton of damage that now no one is really able to mediate or even know about, as agencies remain ignorant to the changes in hydrology that just pipeline construction brings. We say to people, don't talk and think about the oil spills that are going to happen. We know oil pipelines leak eventually. They all age out and leak or break. But the real issue is the change to your hydrology and your landscape, which is evidenced here at Walker Brook, where you can see an inundation of the land because their pipeline brought all this water out of our deep groundwater to the surface and out. One of the interesting things about Walker Brook is that it is located at the Laurentian Divide, which is just to the east of this creek. And during the remediation work that Enbridge did, millions of gallons of water were pumped from the Red River of the North, which this is a tributary of, that goes all the way up to Hudson Bay. And instead, these millions of gallons of water were pumped over the Laurentian Divide into the Mississippi watershed. And none of these impacts to this water movement were really understood or studied. So what we're seeing is regulatory capture, where agencies don't have a full understanding of the risks. We're seeing applicants who are not fully transparent about the risks that they bring, including temperature changes just from their pipeline alone. And we're seeing agencies permit projects that really should not be permitted because they end up bringing tremendous damages to the land. So feel free to look through all of the information that we have. We've got videos that you can watch about if those are easier to digest and understand. Waadookawaad Amikwag has a great wish to help anyone who is interested in working with us and our data to help their own projects in their own places. Please feel free to contact us with this outreach sheet. And if you want to stay up to date, please join our mailing list. At the bottom of each page, you can join up and you will get any of the information that we send out to the public to notify them of damages. So thank you very much for checking out our website. We look forward to hearing from you if you have questions, and we hope that our information will help you in the endeavors that you have to protect land and water.